Pranam.
Those who take these words to the world are great benefactor of the world. These are auspicious to hear and propitious to inculcate in one's own life. Those who take these words to the world are indeed great benefactor of the world. So we are studying Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play. And we are at that where Narendranath's education, how Sri Ramakrishna educated Narendranath. It's very important that we should understand the importance of incarnation. What is incarnation? Sri Ramakrishna said that there was a salt doll. Salt doll. It wanted to fathom the depth of the ocean. But as soon as it entered into water, it melted down. Now, who will come and report how deep the ocean is? So it is difficult because nobody will be there. And according to some school that even Shukadeva, etc., they heard the murmur of the ocean, but they did not take bath. So this is one school. But later Sri Ramakrishna said, but by the grace of Lord, someone enters into it and becomes crystallized. Then he comes back to report, to tell people. So this is one example Sri Ramakrishna gave. Another example is to tell that some people would eat mango and wipe their mouth so that nobody would understand. But incarnations are not like that. They come back, they tell, oh, how wonderful mango is. Even they share the mangoes. And the third example he gave, like there is a big wall, and three friends were going. So one friend said, let me see what is there behind the wall. So they brought a ladder and one friend went up, and then he saw, oh, what a wonderful sight. And ha ha ha, and he jumped to the other side because it was so joyful. He did not return. Second friend also went there. He also did not return. But third one, he went there, saw it, and came down. And he informed people, see, there is a mirth of joy. You can also get the share of it. Only you come. This is another example Sri Ramakrishna would give. Another, he would say that there is a wall and there is a big meadow. In that wall, there is a hole. And through that hole, one can see the other side. A great distance one can see. After saying this, he asked M, could you understand what did I say? M said, yes. That hole is yourself. Because through you, we can see a great expanse of the other side, that divinity. So such incarnations come to teach humanity. But they cannot fulfill their mission until or unless there are some supports. Because when one is engrossed or merged in the divine, one loses one's ego. Abhyaktam Vyaktimapanyam Manyante Mam Abuddhaya. Those who are not wise enough, they think that I am with form. But I am Abhyakta, I am unmanifested, said Sri Krishna. So this is a very tricky situation, that a person is not a person. That is why he is at the verge, as Sri Ramakrishna was given instruction by the Divine Mother, that you be in bhavamukha. Bhavamukha, that means be oriented to the divinity. Like standing at the threshold. If you want, you can come in. If you want, you can go out. So this is incarnation of God. But he cannot fulfill his mission alone. So that's another theory is there. It is called Kaya Buha. Kaya Buha means a castle. He brings with him a retinue. Like a president, only president cannot do anything. So there should be some secretaries or ministers. Through ministers, only he can administer the whole country. And of course, then subsequent governments are there, and then officers, bureaucrats, all people who should be there. Even when Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda came to the United States of America, that time he also required some help, and some people did it. Mrs. Olibull, and Jojo, like that. And some dedicated also. So Sri Ramakrishna, our incarnation comes, he does not come alone, he comes with the retinue. Why? Because they are so pure, they cannot do hard work, because their ego is all the time merging in the self. And secondly, it requires lots of rigors to travel and then to deliver lectures. It is not possible for a dedicate health. Therefore, he wanted to have another vehicle, and he himself entered in him. That was Narendranath. So Narendranath, his chief disciple. Now, how he educated him, that is what we are reading. And not only Narendranath, Narendranath was leader. He also educated others. And another point that I always tell, that incarnation is very difficult to understand. When he interacts with his pure devotees, then only we can have a glimpse of him, the real person behind the appearance. So let us go to the text. Yes.
Okay. We're at number 22. Narendra gains faith in the worship of God through symbols and images, making the master happy. This acceptance of God with form was, of course, a most significant event in Narendra's life. Until then, he had not understood the hidden meaning behind worshiping God as mother, or the meaning of using symbols and images. Previously, he had disregarded the images of gods and goddesses and had never visited their temples with love and respect. From now on, his heart saw clearly the true mystery of this worship, and his spiritual life became more full and expansive. This made the master jubilant. Vaikuntha Nath Sanyal, a friend of ours, visited Dakshineshwar the day after this incident. We shall now present his eyewitness account to give the reader a complete picture.
So we are there where Narendranath was suffering from penury, poverty, and he had no work. Father passed away few days or a month ago, few weeks ago. So in that situation, he thought a plan that he would request Sri Ramakrishna to pray to the Divine Mother. Then Sri Ramakrishna encouraged him to go to Divine Mother. So he went there. But as soon as he went there, he was totally overpowered by the divinity. See, ordinary people cannot even understand this. So Sri Ramakrishna wanted his own disciple, and that also pure-hearted disciple. So then only they could understand the import of the vision of Divine Mother. Other people cannot even stand this. So Narendranath went to the temple, and thrice he tried, but he could not ask money. Rather, he asked renunciation, knowledge, devotion, etc. from Mother. He could not ask Mother for worldly gain. But later Sri Ramakrishna assured him that there will be no dearth of simple food and simple clothing. So now, how Sri Ramakrishna was happy, because this was very important event. Narendranath admitted the Divine Mother. He admitted that it is possible to worship God in form, with qualities. Before that, he was against it. It was sacrilegious for him to worship God in form because it is limited. But then he could understand that mother is with form, with qualities, as mother is without qualities and without form. So this is very significant. And Sri Ramakrishna was very happy. Yes.
23. Vaikuntha Nath Sanyal describes the master's happiness. I became acquainted with a person named Tarapada Ghosh, who worked with me in the same office, said Vaikuntha. Tarapada was a close friend of Narendra. I'd seen Narendra with Tarapada a few times in our office. Tarapada had told me that Sri Ramakrishna was very fond of Narendra. However, I never tried to get acquainted with him. On that day, I went to Dakshineshwar at noon. The master was seated alone in his room, and Narendra was sleeping on the veranda outside. The master was beaming with joy. As soon as I bowed down to him, he pointed to Narendra and said, "Look at that boy. That boy is very good. His name is Narendra. He wouldn't accept the Divine Mother before, but last night he did. He was in need of money, so I advised him to ask Mother for it. But he couldn't. He said he felt ashamed. When he came back from the temple, he asked me to teach him a song in praise of Mother. So I taught him, 'Mother, thou art our sole Redeemer.' And he sang it all night long. That's why he's sleeping now." And then the master smiled with joy and said, "Narendra has accepted Mother Kali. That's very good, isn't it?" Seeing that he was as happy as a child about this, I answered, "Yes, sir, it is very good." A little later, he smiled and said again, "Narendra has accepted the Mother. It's very good. What do you say?" And he kept smiling and saying that over and over.
Yeah, so that's Amar Ma Tvam Hi Tara. So here the translation is given, "O Mother, thou art our sole Redeemer. Thou the support of the three gunas, higher than the Most High. Thou art compassionate. I know, who takest away our bitter grief. Thou art in earth, in water. Thou lies at the root of all. In me, in every creature, thou hast thy home. Though clothed with form, yet art thou formless reality. Sandhya art thou, Sandhya is evening prayer. Gayatri, that's another mantra, that's also thou. Thou dost sustain this universe. Mother, the help art thou. Of these who have no help but thee, O eternal beloved of Shiva." So here, mother is with form, but again, mother is without form because she's all pervading. So this song was taught by Sri Ramakrishna. Narendranath requested Sri Ramakrishna, "Would you please kindly teach that song?" And Master asked, "Which one?" So then he indicated that Amar Ma Twang Hi Tara. "O Mother, thou art our sole Redeemer." And after learning that, he sang that song the whole night. So this is, this is unthinkable. A person who did not admit and then total submission to her. So this is very important incident. See why important? This is the sphere of mother. This is like playing field. When you are playing in a field, you must admit the rules and regulations of the field. So suppose we want to travel somewhere by, say, water, then we must have a boat. So whatever is required for that particular situation, one must admit it. So this world is created by the Divine Mother. So one must admit, like when someone is playing, he must admit the rules and regulations of the playing field. That is why it is important. He could have gone without admitting this, and he would meditate. You know, that Girish Chandra Ghosh used to tell that Mahamaya could not bind two people. One is Nag Mahashaya. Nag Mahashaya was so humble. All the time he was humbler than humblest. Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarori Vashaishnuna. So he was like humbler than a blade of grass. So the Divine Mother, the Mahamaya, could not bind him because he was so small. He slipped out of that net, and she could not also bind, she could not bind Narendranath also. Why? Because he was so big. But when you are interacting in this world, you must admit the rules. That is why he admitted Mother, Divine Mother, and Sri Ramakrishna was so happy. Yes. Yes.
Okay. 24. An example of how the master regarded Narendra as his own. When Narendra awoke at 4 p.m., he came and sat near the master, appearing about to take leave of him and return to Calcutta. But the master went into ecstasy and moved closer to Narendra. He said, "What I see is that I'm this body, his own body, and that body, Narendra's body also. It's true, I see no difference. If you lay a stick on the surface of the Ganges, the water seems to be divided in two parts, but it's really all one. There's no division. The same thing is true here. Can you understand that? What else exists but Mother? Isn't that true?" Then he said suddenly, "I'll smoke." I hastily prepared the water pipe and gave it to him. After taking a few puffs, he said, "No, I'll smoke straight from the bowl." And he took the tobacco bowl in both hands. He puffed again, then held it to Narendra's mouth and said, "Take a puff or two from my hands." Narendra hesitated. The master said, "What ignorance! Are you and I different? This is I, and that is also I." Saying this, he put his hands to Narendra's mouth and forced him to smoke. Narendra took a couple of puffs and then stopped. Seeing that he had stopped, the master was about to start smoking again when Narendra said quickly, "Sir, wash your hands before you smoke." But the master wouldn't do so. "You wretch," he told Narendra, "you're too conscious of differences." Then he continued to smoke through his hands, although Narendra's lips had touched them. He uttered many spiritual truths from his state of ecstasy. Normally, the master couldn't partake of anything that had been tasted by another. To him, it was like refuse. I was amazed when I saw him behave that way with Narendra that day and realized the closeness between them.
You see, like what is that way? That, there is a Hubble bubble. So on the top of that slender structure, the ball is kept. So master took in his hand like this and puffed. And then he put in front of Narendra to puff from here. But generally, when somebody touches it, that means touching by lip, Sri Ramakrishna would not be able to puff again. But in this case, he saw that he and Narendranath was not two different entities. That's why he said, "This is also I, that's also I." And in the beginning, I told about it. That's called Kaya Buha. Kaya Buha means encircling oneself So avatar comes. He makes an encirclement around him. So all the direct disciples, and especially Narendranath was such. So this is, we can see here how Kaya Vyuha works. Ramachandra, when Ramachandra incarnated, so he was in 4 brothers. That's Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, and Shatrughna. So then anyway, we go forward. Yes, go ahead.
25. Vaikuntha returns to Calcutta with Narendra. Our conversation continued till 8 p.m. When we saw that the master's ecstasy had come to an end, Narendra and I took leave of him and returned to Calcutta on foot. Later, Narendra told us many times, ever since our first meeting, it was the master alone who always had faith in me. No one else, not even my own mother and brothers. That faith and that love of his have bound me to him forever. The master was the only one who knew how to love and who really loved. Worldly people only feign love to gratify their own self-interest.
Yeah, that's why Sri Ramakrishna, he described. Narendranath described that Sri Ramakrishna was Love personified. And it is not because of some selfish end, rather it is without any selfish motive. Yes, we go ahead.
Chapter 9. The devotees of the Master and Narendra. 1. The Master's marked devotees arrive by 1884. We mentioned earlier that the devotees whom the Master had seen in his yogic vision came to Dakshineshwar before the end of 1884, with the exception of Purna, who arrived at the beginning of 1885. When the Master blessed Purna, he remarked, "In a vision, I saw the class of devotees who were supposed to come here, and with Purna's arrival, it is complete. No one else of this class will come here." 2. The Master's behavior with this group of devotees. Most of these devotees came to the Master between the middle of 1883 and the middle of 1884. At that time, Narendra was struggling with his financial problems, and Rakhal was staying in Vrindavan for a while. Sometimes when the Master spoke to his audience, he would predict the arrival of a chosen devotee, pointing to a particular direction and saying, "Today, a devotee of this place is coming from this direction." As soon as a marked devotee arrived, the Master received him as cordially as an old acquaintance, saying, "You belong to this place." Once he had met such a fortunate man, the Master was eager to see him again, feed him, and speak with him privately about spiritual matters. After the Master had observed the character and habits of a new devotee, he would introduce him to a longtime devotee of a similar nature so that they could spend time together and talk about God. Again, sometimes he visited the houses of his young devotees of his own accord and pleased their guardians with inspired talks, thus removing any obstacles to their occasional visits to him.
Yeah, so all the disciples started coming one by one, mostly in 1883 and later also 1884, because Sri Ramakrishna now gradually preparing for his departure. When Mathur was there, he used to tell Mathur that there are many devotees who would come here. But it did not happen during Mathur's lifetime. And many times Mathur doubted that where are your devotees? Then Sri Ramakrishna would say that mother told me, therefore they will come. So they started coming after 1882, except maybe one or two, 82, 83, 84. So Yes, they started coming one by one because they are also important players in this Ramakrishna Leela. Of course, later also few people joined in the West when Swamiji came here. So all these are, we'll discuss when it will come. Yes.
3. Absorbed in a divine mood, the master touches or gives a mantra to the devotees according to their capacity. The result. As soon as those marked devotees arrived, or a short while thereafter, the master took them aside and asked them to meditate. Then, while in ecstasy, he touched their chests or tongues. This powerful touch forced their minds inward, withdrawing them partially or completely from sense objects, awakening their accumulated spiritual tendencies and engaging them in the effort to realize God. At that touch, some devotees had visions of divine light or of the luminous forms of gods and goddesses. Some plunged into deep meditation and experienced an indescribable bliss. Some felt an immediate release of the knots in their hearts and felt an intense longing for God. Some became ecstatic and experienced savikalpa samadhi, and some rare souls had a foretaste of nirvikalpa samadhi. Thus, many people who came to him had visions of luminous divine forms and other experiences. The master told us that his touch created in Tarak a tremendous longing and cry for God, awakening his heart suddenly. His touch also caused Junior Naren to become absorbed in meditation on the formless God. But there was evidence that only Narendra had a foretaste of Nirvikalpa Samadhi from that touch. In addition to touching them, the master initiated some of his devotees with mantras. When he initiated devotees, the master did not consult their horoscopes or perform any rituals like other gurus. He used his yogic vision to see the tendencies they had inherited from past lives, then would tell them, this is your mantra. This is how he initiated Niranjan, Tijachandra, Vaikunta, and a few others, as they told us later. He did not initiate people with Shakti or Vishnu mantras just because they had been born into Shakta or Vaishnava families. After observing their inner tendencies, he sometimes initiated a Shakta with a Vishnu mantra and a Vaishnava with a Shakti mantra. It is evident that the master always instructed each individual according to that person's tendencies.
So this is very important. Initiation is very important because then only spiritual journey starts. And with the mantra, he transfers power. Guru transfers power to the disciple. And then only the spiritual sprout starts its journey. So Sri Ramakrishna was Kalpataru even before 1886, 1st of January. He was distributing grace to many. Only on that day he revealed and imparted that power to many people. So that is the special case, but otherwise Sri Ramakrishna would do this always. Some people came and some even from distant people, distant places came, and he was waiting as it were for them. So, yeah, it is very interesting. Yes, please go ahead.
4. What the master's divine touch proves. The scriptures tell us that great souls can direct the minds of others to a higher realm by imparting their spiritual powers through a touch or merely by willing it to be so. These beings use that power to change the lives of their close disciples and even to affect the lives of prostitutes and profligates. The manifestation of that power is visible in varying degrees in the lives of Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Chaitanya, and others who are adored even now as incarnations of God. Although the activities of great souls are recorded in the scriptures, people have had no direct contact with such divine activities for a long time and have lost faith in their power. Nowadays, many people consider faith in God to be a kind of mental weakness deriving from superstition and think even less of faith in a divine incarnation. It was an absolute necessity in this modern age for an extraordinary person like the Master to be born for the purpose of removing doubt from people's minds and making them spiritual. Now that we have seen the manifestation of that power in the Master, we can believe in the similar power of great souls in the past. Some may not believe the Master to be an incarnation of God, but seeing his power, they cannot deny that he was superhuman like Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Chaitanya, and other great souls.
Yeah, many people came to Sri Ramakrishna, but some could not understand his greatness. So they missed. Even when Swamiji came to the States, he had that power. And when he would lecture, he would lift the audience with his power to that state where they could understand. That is why those who attended his classes, they felt uplifted. Once it happened that Swamiji stopped his talk. Then later somebody questioned, why Swamiji, everybody liked it and you stopped. Then Swamiji explained that it is because I felt that I can mold their hearts, but I don't want to interfere. Let them grow naturally. And Sri Ramakrishna also did the same thing. He would always encourage to support, not to change one's course, spiritual journey, course of a spiritual journey. Even when Narendranath had Nirvikalpa Samadhi, before that, one day Narendranath felt a great current of spirituality at Kashipur Garden House. So he asked Swami Abhedanandaji, later Swami Abhedanandaji, that time a Kali, to touch his knee. And a current was passing through his knee. But after that, later that Kali, Abhedanandaji, was in deep trance, but his body was bent. Sri Ramakrishna scolded him not to do this. So this is our tradition, that not to disturb one's spiritual course. Rather, one should be helpful for one's growth. So this power also, Swamiji had this power, and not only Swamiji, but his direct disciples also. Only Swamiji had greater power, that is natural. Yes.
5. Devotees consider the Master to be a follower of their respective paths, and the Master behaves accordingly. The devotees seen by the Master in his yogic vision were people of different ages, classes, and religious backgrounds, young and old, householders and monks, worshippers of God with form and of a formless God, Shakta and Vaishnava, and so on. Despite their differences, however, they had one thing in common. They had sincere faith in and steadfast steadfast devotion to their respective paths and were prepared to make great sacrifices to realize God. The master affectionately bound them together, and he supported their respective spiritual beliefs in his dealings with them. As a result, each devotee believed that although the master was adept in all religious paths, he had greater love and more sympathy for his or her own path. Under this impression, each showed tremendous love and devotion for the master. When the master's noble qualities and training gradually influenced those devotees to cross the barriers of sectarianism and become liberal, they were amazed at the fullness of their liberality. As an example, we shall mention an event here.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, description. Yeah.
6. As their open-mindedness increases, the devotees understand the master better. The example of Balaram Basu. Balaram Basu, who was firmly devoted to Vishnu, was born in a Vaishnava family from Bagbazar in Calcutta. He was a householder, but was not attached to the world. He had plenty of wealth, but no pride. Even before he came to the master, he spent 4 or 5 hours every morning in spiritual disciplines and study. He was so careful in his practice of nonviolence that he never hurt anything for any reason, not even an insect. When the master first met him, he received him as cordially as he would an old acquaintance. He said, "Balaram was one of the companions of Chaitanya. He belongs to this place. Once while in ecstasy, I watched as Chaitanya inspired a large crowd with a flood of divine love, singing kirtan with Advaita, Nityananda, and others. Balaram was in that wonderful kirtan party."
Yeah, Sri Ramakrishna would indicate from which tradition his devotees came. Like Sharat and Shashi, they came from the Christian tradition. Mahapurush Maharaj came from Buddhist tradition. Not this life, but before that. And similarly from Arjun, like that. So he would say that he's from that tradition or from this part. So in this case, Balaram, in a trance, Sri Ramakrishna saw him at Dakshineshwar, where M and Balaram was in the party of Chaitanya. And he saw in ecstatic mood. So he immediately could understand that they are earmarked for this place. That means Sri Ramakrishna. So he was one of the suppliers, Balaram Bose. And Sri Ramakrishna went to his house more than 100 times. So that is now one of our centers, and many Swamis also stayed there. Mother stayed there. Latu Maharaj, Brahmanandji. So many people stayed in that place. So still that house is still there, and it is now a center. Yeah, go ahead.
7. Balaram's spiritual progress and way of life after meeting the master. After Balaram met the master, his mind underwent a great change and he progressed rapidly in spiritual life. He surpassed the limits of external worship and other such preparatory devotions, and was soon able to live in the world depending completely on God and discriminating between the real and the unreal. His life eventually became completely focused on following the Vaishnava ideal. He dedicated his wife, son, relatives, wealth, and everything he owned to God, living as his servant, and he tried to spend most of his time in the master's holy company. Balaram was not satisfied with enjoying for himself the peace that the grace of the master brought him. He made all the appropriate arrangements for his relatives and friends to visit the master and taste the divine bliss. Thus, because of Balaram, many people were blessed by becoming devotees of the master.
Yeah, when the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, the monastic disciples, were in Baranagar, in a dilapidated house, and they had nothing to eat. Only Balaram would bring something, so they would wait for him. Sometimes vegetables, sometimes the groceries and sweets, etc., offerings. All this he used to bring. That is why when he passed away, Swamiji Narendranath, Swamiji was very upset that he is no more with us. So anyway, so he was so close. And later that he named his son Ramakrishna. And all others also were totally dedicated to Sri Ramakrishna. Yes, go ahead.
8. Balaram's doubt about changing his views on nonviolence. As Balaram's view of external worship began to change, so did his observance of nonviolence. Previously, he could not kill mosquitoes, even if they bit him while he was meditating and distracted him, let alone at other times. He considered killing them to be a sin. One day he realized that true religion requires concentrating the scattered mind on God, not dwelling on protecting mosquitoes and other insects. It could not be irreligious to kill a few mosquitoes if it kept the mind focused on God for even for a short while. It must be beneficial instead. Balaram told us, "My long practice of nonviolence was thus challenged by that thought, but my mind was not completely free from doubt. So I went to Dakshineshwar to consult with the master on this matter. On my way, I was trying to remember if I'd ever seen the master kill mosquitoes as others did. I thought not. As far as my memory went, the master was far more careful in his practice of nonviolence than myself. I remembered that one day when the master saw someone walk across a field of newly grown grass, he had felt excruciating pain in his chest because he vividly and intensely experienced the life force and consciousness of the grass. I thought it wasn't necessary to ask him this question. My mind was playing tricks on me. Nevertheless, I resolved to go and see him. It would purify my mind."
Yeah. So this incident is not only for Balaram, it is for us also. Because we also had this doubt. Should we kill or should we not? Anyways, mosquitoes or bugs. So what will happen, you know. But before that, I'll inform that Balaram had a jamindari. Jamindari means big plot of land in Odisha. So there we have a center now. And also Kalababu's Kunja in Vrindavan. So that family wanted to give fully, but somehow that did not work. Now a portion of that has come to us. And there is a nice museum regarding Sri Ramakrishna and those who visited those places. In that place, Brahmanandji and other disciples also stayed. So Kalababu's Kunja. So that's two places came which belong to Balaram Babu. Yes.
9. His doubt is dispelled as he witnesses the master's unusual behavior.
Yeah, that name of the place Kothar, where mother also went and stayed. Kothar in Odisha. So that's a very nice place in a village like place. So now we have a center there. Yes, please go ahead.
When I reached the door of the master's room at Dakshineshwar, I was dumbfounded by what I saw as I entered. The master was removing bed bugs from his pillow and killing them. When I approached and bowed down to him, he said, "There are many bed bugs breeding in the pillow. They bite me day and night, distracting my mind and keeping me from sleeping. So I'm killing them. I no longer had any questions. All doubt was dispelled from my mind by the master's words and actions.
Yeah, it is said that when you approach a guru, he replies without even asking question. Gurustu mauna vyakhyanam shishyastu chinna samshaya. So chitra vata tarur mule, vriddha shishya, gurur yuva. So in Dakshinamurti Stotram it is there. The guru is young, but disciple is old, and they are sitting under a tree, butter, and Shishya is asking question, and Guru is answering without uttering a word. Shishyastu chinna samshaya. And that all the doubts are going. So here, all this happens by the will of God. So Sri Ramakrishna did not do intentionally, but this is the Divine Mother, how she teaches us. And exactly that moment, that teaching came, that happens. Even today it happens. So if you have a doubt, just pray. And then you can see that it works. Sri Ramakrishna answers or Divine Mother answers your question. So this is not that it happened only once, it happens always. Yes, go ahead.
Amazed, I pondered. For the last 2 or 3 years, I've been visiting the master unannounced at all hours. Sometimes I come in the morning and return home in the evening, and sometimes come in the evening and leave at midnight. I've been visiting him 3 or 4 times a week, but had never seen him doing such a thing. Why did he do this today? I found the answer within. If I'd seen him behaving in this manner previously, my belief in nonviolence would have been violated and I would have lost faith in him. This is why the compassionate master had never acted this way before me.
See? So he was able to keep the attitude of devotees, and that he kept always. Yes.
10. The master's circle of devotees and his young devotees. In addition to the devotees whom the master had seen in visions before they arrived, many men and women devotees came to Dakshineshwar to see the master in search of peace. He received them affectionately, blessing some of them with advice and some with a divine touch. As time went on, a large group of devotees gathered around the master. The master took special care in developing the spiritual life of the boys and unmarried young men who came to him. Many times he mentioned the following reason for this. One can't have a vision of God unless one puts the entirety of one's mind on him. The boys' whole minds are available to them. Their attention isn't scattered among wife and children, money and property, name and fame, and other worldly objects. If they try to focus their whole minds on God now, they will be blessed to see him. That's why I'm extremely eager to guide them on the spiritual path. Whenever he had the opportunity, the master took them one by one to a secluded place and instructed them in the practice of yoga and meditation, and advised them to observe unbroken brahmacharya and avoid getting entangled in marriage. He selected for each of them a different chosen deity according to aptitude and taught each one how to establish a relationship with the deity according to that devotee's spiritual disposition, so that the devotee could easily make progress in his own path.
Yeah, this is for those renunciate. But for grihasthas also he would instruct accordingly. When M asked, what should he do? Because he wanted to renounce the world. But Sri Ramakrishna said, no, for you, this is the way. So this depends on the person. and spiritual aptitude. So this is Sri Ramakrishna, how he handled this we can see here. He handled various devotees in various ways. So Sri Ramakrishna was always eager to guide them. So that was there because time was less and he had to finish that mother's job. Yes.
11. How the master advises householder devotees and the general public. After reading the description above, one should not conclude that the master preferred to teach his young male disciples and had little grace and compassion for his householder devotees. The master knew that many of those men and women had neither the ability nor the time to practice the most advanced spiritual disciplines, so he did not instruct them in the same manner as he did the young men. Rather, he taught householders to slowly reduce their desires for lust and gold, and he constantly guided them on the path of devotion so that they might eventually attain God. He first advised them to live unattached in God's world and to carry out their respective duties like servants in the house of a wealthy person. He encouraged them to practice chastity as much as possible. He told them, after having one or two children, a husband and wife should live like brother and sister, keeping their minds focused on God. He also directed them to follow the path of truth, to deal with people in a straightforward way, and to be content with simple food and clothing, shunning luxury. He told them to establish their minds in God, to practice meditation, japa, and worship every morning and evening, and to sing kirtan. If he realized that some of these householder devotees were incapable of doing that, he would advise them to go into solitude and chant Hari's name while clapping their hands, or to sing kirtan with their relatives and friends.
Yeah, see, like Girish Chandra Ghosh was a drunkard. So he said he came once and he was drunk fully. And he said that I have taken liquor. So he said, Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, sir, how much, whatever you, how much you can do, you, koto khabi, how much can you do? How much can you drink? But do one thing, offer that to the Divine Mother first, and then drink. So it depended on the disciple. Same prescription cannot be given to all patients. Rather, it depends on the patient. So Sri Ramakrishna was Bhava Roga Vaidya. He was doctor of this worldly disease. And he prescribed medicine to various patients, means devotees, accordingly. So his prescription differed from person to person. So for renunciate, his teaching was different. For householders, it was different. Even for lowly, he had different teachings. Anyway, but all are to guide them to the divine, to Divine Mother or God. So we'll stop here. It is time. Okay, we say our prayer.
I had a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
So that like the incarnation feels happiness or sorrow, so he is really experiencing the emotions, or it is like putting up a show?
So your question is whether an incarnation feels sorrows and joys, etc. That's it?
Yes.
So we are talking about this in our Vivek Churamani class. Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti is for those who are aspirant. they attain a state which is called Jivan Mukti. They are free while living. Incarnation is master of such. So he is not bound. He is Mayadhisha. Mayadhisha. And aspirants are Mayadhina. Mayadhina means they are under Mahamaya. But he controls his Mahamaya. Prakritim swam avashtabhya sambhavami atma maya. He takes the power of Maya and he creates himself. So this is a two different situation. Whether he weeps or he is depressed, weeps or laughs or not, yes, he does it, but he knows that he is not doing. Neiva kinchit karomiti yukta mannita tattvavit. The knower of self, they understand, they know that I am not doing anything. But he behaves like normal human being. Otherwise, he cannot teach. If he is a very wealthy person, he won't understand what is the pangs of poverty and separation. So he experiences all this to show in those situations how one handles oneself. So apparently, yes, he does it. But in reality, he is not attached. As Sri Krishna also said, that Chatur Varnam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha Tasya Kartaram Apimam Vidya Kartaram Abhyam. I have created 4 Varnas in this world to have the ecosystem, to have the system. It is like this. If there is no professor, school cannot run. If there are no defender of faith, then any people can come and torture. There will be no order. And if there are no businessmen, then society cannot run. If there is no servicemen, society cannot run. So for creation, I have done it, but though I have done it, I am not karta. I am akarta. Karmani akarma ya pashet, akarmani cha karma yaha, sabuddhiman manusheshu sayukta krishna karmakrit. So he who looks at that I am not doing anything while doing. So this is very tricky. That is why it is difficult to understand what an incarnation is. Apparently he is doing everything. He weeps, he laughs, he dances, he sings, he enjoys the company of devotees, everything he does. But he knows that he is not doing anything. He is in his own self. Yes, to give company to the devotees, he does everything. So yes and no. Okay. Simple fact is, yes, he weeps. Even Ramchandra wept and he had to struggle a lot. Even to kill Ravana, he had to struggle a lot. And in absence of Sita, he wept. But actually it is not. It is to teach us. So if they don't suffer, number one, we can say, oh God, you know, you don't suffer, so how can you understand our suffering? So to stop us saying this, he had to undergo all these things. You see, it is like this, a laborer or a beggar is different than a person who is enacting in a drama as beggar or a laborer. So when one enacts, he knows that I am not that, but he shows exactly same thing to impress the audience that I am a beggar. And we also weep seeing his sorrows and misfortune. We are also affected. So this way, yes, he does it, but in reality, Though he does, he's not affected by anything. Right? Akshay? Thank you.
Swami,
Yes.
Swami, just on just probably on the same topic, there's this thing that I came across which said that even though someone like that is nirguna, but it is not abhava. Is it the same as having no bhava, or it is that it is full, therefore there is no lack?
Okay. He cannot be indicated. He alone is, but it cannot be indicated. When you say nirguna, when there is no guna, we cannot indicate. But he's saguna also. When he is saguna, then we can indicate. See, we worship God in the temple. So we imagine that God is present in my front. And God has all qualities. So it is, though he is abhyaktam vyaktimapanyam manyante mam abuddhaya. I am abhyakta. I am unmanifested. But people see me. And as they see, gradually when they grow, then gradually they understand that I am beyond manifestation. Say for the matter, you are also similar. Apparently you think you are a body. Or you are a mind, you suffer a lot. But when you go to sleep, in deep sleep, all this identification is removed from you. So you are also abhyakta. Only thing you don't understand, though you understand, but you don't understand. Whereas God understands and understands, but still he does it. Abhyaktam vyaktimapanyam. So you are in reality, if you go, dive deep within, you can find that you are untouched by anything. But when you are interacting in the world, then I am suffering from this and that. And you see somebody told me this, why you should do like this? All kinds of things will come. Because that time you are in the world, you are attached in the world. So we are like beggars, real beggars. Whereas an incarnation is feigning. He is acting like that, so that he can teach us. In reality, he is not attached. You are also not attached. Right? So nirguna, saguna, and so many other things. Just Ramakrishna said, he is with form, he is without form, he is with qualities, he is without qualities, and so many other things. You cannot indicate whether it is bhava or abhava, asti or nasti. It cannot be indicated. You cannot indicate yourself what you really are, let alone God. You cannot indicate what you really are. If you tell something that is related to your body or related to your mind, but what you really are, you cannot indicate. So we cannot say. That is why sadasad akhila bhedatita meka swarupam. Whether it is sat or whether it is asat, he is beyond everything. These are expressions by your words. Whether it is sat, existing, or asat, non-existing. These are our concept within the sphere of mind and speech. But he is beyond mind and speech. But out of grace, he feigns. He looks like one of us. You know, this is very important. One day, one Swami went to M and said that everything is okay. But I don't have faith in Sri Ramakrishna. Then he said, okay, you know, this similar idea also I harbored once. Harbored. So what happened? He went to Dakshineshwar and he went to his room. Sri Ramakrishna was sleeping. So he offered his pranam and he started rubbing his feet. And he thought, see, I'm a human being, he's also a human being. I also eat, he also eats. I also do all kinds of things as human being, he also does. Then why he is God? Immediately Sri Ramakrishna got up and said, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? If you meditate on this, everything will happen. If you meditate on this, you'll get everything. If you meditate on this, you'll get everything. Then he said, Mother, did I tell this or you told? Who told this? So this is, Sri Ramakrishna. He revealed his real self. And it is the divine grace that such a moment come when he reveals. Otherwise, you cannot indicate, you cannot say logically, this is this and not this is this. We cannot say. But it is out of grace that we receive his grace, and then we can meditate on him. And in course of time, we'll find that not only him, our nature is also same.
So
Thank you, Swami.
Yes. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamivavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Namaste, Swami.
Namaste.
Pranam Swamiji.
Namaste.
Pranam.
Namaste. Hari Om.
Jai Ma, Swami.
Jai Ma.